Join us for a review of the new Audi S6. Let's go. The newest generation of the Audi A6 has in general a quite sporty look with this huge single frame front grille. The S version, of course, a little bit sportier trim. You can see here the black frame around the grille. Also in the lower part you have those black contrasts. Also the fin structure is just a little bit different to give it a little bit more aggressiveness. Then those headlamps are also in this very sharp design. They start with LED standard. Optionally, you can get those matrix LED lights with an elaborate high beam function. And by the way, this very color here is called Tango Red, and soon we'll dance with the car. 4 meters 93, 16-foot 2 or 194 inches is the total length of the A6 in general, both Avant and sedan. And as I said earlier, besides the different trunk volume, everything we say today will be the same both for the estate and the limousine or sedan. Also, a base A6 starts with 17-inch wheels. Then the S models get 20-inch as standard. Those ones are the optional 21-inch. In the rear, the S model is not, let's say, too different. You can see here also with this pack, it has this dark stripe all across the vehicle, horizontally drawn tail lamps, the S6 logo. And the lower part, this will be very interesting because you can see obviously 4 exhaust pipes, but those are really pure visual. And the reason for that is the package. They had to put different parts in different different areas. For example, also the particulate filter. So, what about the engines here for the S6? In the US, you get the 2.9-liter V6 with 450 horsepower, and the acceleration figure is 4.5 seconds, 600 Newton meters of torque, by the way. And here in Europe, we get the 3-liter TDI, less horsepower, so 350 horsepower, but more Newton meter, 700 Newton meters of torque. Very interesting. However, still half a second slower. About 5 seconds is then the acceleration to 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour. All-wheel drive distribution is standard, 40% front, 60 in the rear, then a little bit adaptive, but with the rear wheel bias. Then inside of the doors, plush materials on the top, leatherette alike, very nicely done, high build quality, microfiber inlets here for the S model, special S steering wheel, perforated sides, and with the S badge logo right there. And then the seats, they usually start with a sportier seat, already sport seat, but then with the separated head restraint in the upper part. Then also with microfiber inside and outside is still some animal skin part. That would be a standard seat. We have that in our other A6 review. Those ones here are the optional S Sport seats with integrated head restraint and this special quilting structure. It looks very fancy, but it's less comfortable on the long run. Now let's get inside. Well, it's normal sedan or estate seating position in this very segment. Yes, you maybe feel that you sit a little bit lower, but no, not that much. By the way, you see that the seat at the moment is very far pulled backward. If the ignition is on and I would close the door, then it would move forward. There's a comfort function that I can easier get in and out of the car also quite nice. The steering wheel starts with a manual control right here, up and down, and also for reach. It's also available then optional with an electric one. So even with a very expensive vehicle, they still hide some options you could still leave some more money with. The interior overview, a very clean design, sharp design, wrapped tightly right here. Soft touch is, well, mostly here in the back part. And then something like a table right there, very interesting, here with the aluminum look. But then a lot of black piano lacquer used right there. That's not, my special thing, because it leaves a lot of fingerprints and so on. Or you have to clean it all like with the dust and so on. Good size for the steering wheel, definitely. And the screen setup is here, virtual cockpit 12.3. That's also standard then. And here on the right side, this one is 10.1 and the lower one is 8.6. In some base A6 models, there's also a smaller screen on the top part. And those ones are somewhat communicating to each other. I'll soon show you more about that. And now the details to the screens. Here is a fast processor unit. There you can see the GPS route. You can see that it's very nice to drive. So pretty impressive system. You can always go back then right here to enter a new address, by the way. There you can see that the lower screen then switches around, and then you can, for example, here like write directly Frankfurt, for example. Don't have a good Frank. And then I could say like Furt. Let's see if it checks that. Yeah, Frankfurt. So, switch to the current location. There it is. Then we go to Frankfurt. So there's one possibility. You can also use the voice command. Let's see. Drive me to Frankfurt Central Station.
Searching for Frankfurt Central Station along the route. There are no results along the route. I'll search around the current location.
So even when I have there we are already, so that's quite cool. A head-up display is available for the car, but not in this very vehicle, so we'll keep concentrating on those virtual instruments only. You can zoom in with the thumb on the steering wheel, for example, in the map. You can also make it a little bit bigger, so that's really helpful while driving, keeping your eyes rather centered to the front. And the middle console here with a nice brushed aluminum cover. The shifting lever, pretty thick. Then here's a space to put your key if you don't want to leave it in your pocket. And getting in the rear, well, those are quite long cars. And you also can drive with tall adults here in the rear, no problem. There's also still a lot of legroom left, no problem. I mean, overall, the package of those vehicles isn't that good because they're pretty long and still don't offer so much room on the interior considering the length. With 565 liters, that's just 35 liters more on paper for the trunk capacity here for the Estate than for the sedan. But, of course, you have a better access here to the trunk. Right here, open space. This is the big advantage. And look here, very square dimensions. And also nice that this top cover, it raises together with the hatch and also has rails at the side, so a very nice and clean solution. And even uphill, wow, look at that acceleration, even uphill. Then nice on the brakes again, smooth feeling. So this car here then feels a little bit smaller than it actually is. It has some, quite wide dimensions, but due to the agility, the adaptive suspension they have in here, also set on a sportier note, together with the 21 in this is also I'm just hitting the horn, that my cameraman is standing on the outside and knows that I'm coming. Not sure which corner it was. I think it's corner above there. So because we're also doing some outside shots, yeah, I think it's the next corner up there. So the suspension again doing a good job. Then you also can hear the horn. And wow, I mean, look how smooth the riding here is. Of course, the road is very good. Yeah, but with those 21-inch wheels together with the little bit stiffer suspension, it's really cool for good roads here. Really nice. Yeah, here now accelerating out the corner, and the rear differential lock, that's option available, is also a good idea, definitely. But The quattro all-wheel drive also distributes it, a little bit more rear wheel biased, but then you don't have power all just on one axle. If you have it on both, then you also can have some smooth acceleration. So this setup here with the adaptive suspension and the 21-inch wheels, I can recommend it definitely in general for good roads. But if you stick with the standard wheel size, that would also be a good idea to have a little bit more comfort, a little bit more room to play with that. And of course, if you stick to the optional air suspension, again, for your everyday driving life, this would be even more comfortable. Let's see if we can get it to 200. There's also a little bit bendy right there. Let's go. And that's 200 kilometers an hour, well, 25 miles. So pretty quick also when you're already picking up speed. Now those brakes, yeah, I mean, just slightly hitting those and very good deceleration. So awesome brakes they applied right here, really nice. Should you really go for the optional ceramic brakes is always the question, and I say rather not. They're very expensive. You just use them on the racetrack primarily. If you're not going to use them on the racetrack, you can also just leave them. They tend to collect some small stones, had experience with those already, and they want to be used. So if you're not using them in a harsh way at some point, it's also not good for those ceramic brakes. So again, just stick with the standard one unless you want to go to the racetrack, which is not really a realistic option for this vehicle. The adaptive dampers that are standard with this car are doing a great job. So it is one where you would not exactly miss the air suspension. Here in the sports or dynamic mode, it's also a little bit stiffer. If I go to the comfort mode, the adaptive dampers react accordingly and also a little bit softer. That's good for a long run here on the motorway, for example, to give you a little bit more comfort. So I would rather recommend those, sports then or dynamic mode, when you want to let it fly on the countryside road or something. So, and again, we think about, we have 5 liters as a minimum consumption here and about 10 liters as a maximum, then something in the middle, so like 15, divided by 2. Yeah, that would be, now it's very, very hard calculations. 7.5 liters on 100 kilometers, as you know, like average consumption you could easily score with that. And that indeed also comes close with our experience so far with the normal versions of this 3-liter TDI. And now to our conclusion for today with the Audi S6. Well, Avant or sedan, that's of course a big question, but in Europe people would rather go for this one here, for the Estate, because it's just more practical. In the US, however, sedan is always more popular. Then, in general, the exterior is, pretty sharp design and especially a little bit sportier here in the S version. Interior, a great build quality, really trimmed to perfection. Just of course still a lot of animal skin use in a lot of different trims, but at least there are also the Alcantara seats that will also come standard for the S models. Also advise you to go for those. Then the driving experience is comfortable and sporty ride at the same time. The base A6 is already a very sporty one. This one of course tuned even sportier. The suspension also, it's really good also in combination with the big wheels as long as the roads are even. For a little bit more, bumpy roads, then I would recommend to stick with a little smaller wheels or maybe even upgrade it to an air suspension, which would be a great option to give you even more comfort. Performance-wise, with the discussion about petrol and diesel, again, as I said, the 2.9 liter V6 still be available in the US. It will sound better, yes. It will even be a little bit faster and a little bit more fun to drive. But this one here, the TDI version, has also a lot of power that was totally more than sufficient. And really interesting figure, that we scored a very low consumption, over about 7.5 liters in 1 kilometers, and think you can really live with that. And it would be one aspect, that you can have a good consumption although driving a performance vehicle. And in that way, the diesel indeed does make sense. But what's your take on this very vehicle? Please tell it in the comments, and also tune in to the next Autogefühl episode.